Hello, everyone. We just give everyone a chance to join that's going to join, and we'll get going. All right. So thanks for joining us tonight. And it's of course we know it's Ash Wednesday today and the beginning of our Lenten season. So just remind you that the Abbey Church is open, and there is a Ash Wednesday Mass tonight at 9 if you're interested. So you're welcome to attend. As we begin this season, I always think of it as a season of renewal and a season of hope and of promise. And I think we really need that at this moment. I find the arrival of Lent to be an early sign of spring because we know that it's leading us towards Easter and a beginning of some new things. And so it is a hopeful moment. And so with that in mind, let me share a few updates and then we'll get to some questions, okay? So we began with testing results. Let me just share some things with you. Unfortunately, after 2 days last week, when we seemed to be trending in a really, really good direction, and we took a dip at the beginning of this week. On Monday, we had 9 positive COVID tests among students and staff. And while our online dashboard doesn't include it because we only chart those who test positive on campus, we were made aware of 2 additional positive tests on Saturday who tested off campus, 1 student and 1 staff member. And in both instances, they were symptomatic. The positives, of course, led to some swift contact tracing and additional testing. And we transferred students to isolation and quarantine housing, as many of you know or have experience with that from the past. Yesterday, we had 4 additional positives, including 3 who had been in quarantine because of the close contact with previous positives. As of today, we had 4 additional positives. So we're not alone among colleges that have seen COVID spikes at the beginning of the semester. In fact, it could be a lot worse. At Stonehill, Franklin Pierce, Salve Regina, UMass Amherst, University of New Hampshire, they have all instituted full campus quarantines as a result of rapid COVID spikes. Plymouth State, in our own state, was the latest school to quarantine the entire campus, and they announced that last night. At each of those schools, all students must remain in their rooms except to get food for 10 days. All activities are canceled and all classes are remote. When COVID levels rise quickly, as they did at those schools, the last resort to control the spread is to issue a campus-wide quarantine, or worse, send everyone home. We are doing our best not to reach that point. And of course, as always, we need your help to avoid it. As you know, we began a phased approach to campus restrictions this semester. We began in phase orange, which is essentially how we operated all of last semester. Our hope, however, is if COVID numbers are under control, we can move to fewer restrictions. And I can say without hesitation, this is certainly our intention. We definitely would love to open up things a bit more so to give you more opportunity for socialization. The COVID analytics team has been reviewing our data and has been making recommendations to me about the most appropriate phase for our campus based on cases, our ability to contain the spread, and our capacity to house and test the community. While we had a couple of optimistic days last week, the sharp spike in positives this week has led the team to recommend holding back on a change in our phase orange status at this time. Let me take a few moments and detail some of the factors that go into the COVID analytics team recommendations. First, and clearly, they look at the positivity numbers. It's important not only to view real-time positivity rate, but to examine the trends, up or down. With that in mind, consider this. Over the first 2 weeks of the semester, we did 2,593 tests, and we had 8 positives for a positivity rate of 0.3%. It was a great start, and we were feeling our bubble had been established for the campus. Over the first 3 days of this week, however, we did 802 tests with 14 positives and a positivity rate of 1.74%. That's a significant spike. Next, the analytics team looks at whether the cases are connected in a cluster. This is important because a high number of positives is not quite as alarming if we know they are contained and unlikely to spread further. This is why contact tracing is so important and why your honesty when asked about close contacts is so essential to helping us to identify the clusters. Another important factor the COVID analytics team considers is the amount of isolation and quarantine space that is available. If we are running short of beds, our options to safely manage an outbreak becomes limited very quickly. Of course, there are other factors such as adherence to the community care covenant, off-campus travel, and positivity rates in the region. With this latest outbreak, while the active COVID cases give us pause, the most significant concern at the moment is quarantine space. As of today, we have 53 students in quarantine on campus, which is a significant strain on our capacity. We also have 12 students in isolation on campus and 5 more students who have decided to isolate at home. So the data tells us that while we would like to see progress with the phases, the numbers simply do not support a change at this time. I know this is disappointing. I know you're feeling the pinch of the winter, and I will tell you honestly, and I'm being absolutely honest here, there is nothing I would like more than to announce that we are loosening the rules based on good COVID data. Unfortunately, we have not reached this moment yet. With that in mind, let me state the obvious. We've all grown tired of the pandemic, and we want to return to better times. Those days are coming. Trust me, they are coming, but they are not here yet. So I'm just going to ask everyone to be patient, to hang in there, be supportive, be kind and compassionate, and be hopeful. I assure you, things will not remain the same all semester. In the meantime, let's focus on what we can do rather than what we can't do. Reserve a space in the Gene Center to hang out with your friends. Watch The Bachelor in the game room. I don't know why anybody would, but you might like that, so that's great. Watch it in the game room. Join the CJ Club and watch Criminal Minds tomorrow night. Take a shot at prizes with Cab Bingo. On Friday, the sleds will be back to borrow from the Intercultural Center. After the snow, and on Friday night, you can join the virtual Truth or Laughter program. Next week features things like a virtual escape and a really cool Winter Olympics sponsored by the Data Center, with events such as sled pulling, a shovel toss, and a downhill race. I also encourage you to take advantage of the study rooms in many of the campus buildings. The list is posted on your COVID Canvas page, and let you know where the quiet spaces and where the talking rooms are as well. So check your Canvas page for that. We're looking at the best way to maximize larger spaces for socialization, like Sullivan, now that the ice has been removed. I've said this before, one of the most challenging aspects of the pandemic has been balancing the health and safety of our community with the clear need for socialization opportunities. I promise. We understand the importance of spending time with your friends, and we know it is especially difficult right now. It will get better, I assure you. We are awaiting word on the state's vaccination plan for colleges so we can get ready to get the community vaccinated. That is coming, and that will be a game changer. This week's announcement about spring sports is another sign that we won't be in this mode forever. It's hard to see that far ahead, but the decision to resume athletics is a sign that hope is on the horizon. But at the same time, we have to remember that COVID has not gone away. And in fact, the new variants are more contagious than ever. And we cannot simply go back to the way things were until we are fully out of the woods. And I know what some of you might be thinking is that, well, if I can't socialize on campus, I'll just go off campus. And certainly that's your decision. But I just want to remind you that you continue to put the community at risk. And if our COVID cases continue to increase and spike, then everyone will lose. So I ask you to think very carefully about that. So a couple of final things before we take some questions. I saw an Instagram post from the Melia Center earlier this week. It featured a quote from Gandhi that said, quote, "To lose patience is to lose the battle," unquote. Without question, the pandemic is trying the patience of each and every one of us. It's certainly trying mine, and I know it's trying yours. I feel your frustration, I share it, but it is important to remember that we are all in this together, and we will rise and fall as one community. Let's remember to remain calm, to have respect for one another, to show kindness, especially to our RAs and our RDs, and to see the semester not as one day or even 1 week, but as 4 months that are moving in the right direction. Maybe not the first 3 days of this week, but it will be moving in the right direction. So again, be kind, be patient, and let's have hope. It's been a long road with COVID, but we are approaching the end, but it's going to be a photo finish. So with that, let's take a few questions. So we had 3 questions, it looks like, that came in ahead of time, and we'll go from there. When can seniors expect to hear about graduation move-out plans? As a senior with parents that live far away, it'll be helpful to know to ease and start planning. It's a great question. So this is another area of hope. So I can tell you that our Vice President of Academic Affairs, Brother Isaac Murphy, our Dean of Students, Dean Finn, and the leaders of the class of 2021 have been meeting to talk about graduation. And we're going to be sending out a note probably in the next week, a save the date note about a date for graduation. We're doing everything we can to make sure that that happens in person. Obviously, we're going to have to monitor and see what's possible, but we're going to move forward with plans, and we'll get a date. And so hopefully within the next week, you'll be able to see what that is and begin to make some plans around that. Again, with the big caveat that if things change with COVID, it could make it more difficult. Another question. St. Anselm students need a social life. They will interact either on campus or off, no matter what the rules are. Because of this, wouldn't it be safer to allow intervisitation on campus rather than force students to interact off campus, thus increasing the risk of the entire community? And again, I just say this, that whether you follow the community care covenant on campus or not, or you go off campus and not follow it, you're putting the community at risk. So I know you need a social life. Trust me, we all do. But when you weigh your need versus the need of the entire community, I hope you will see that the Anselmian way is to prioritize the entire community over your own needs. So I'm just going to be clear. There's nothing that would make me happier than to relax the restrictions and to open up intervisitation. I wish I could announce that tonight. I cannot. Again, my responsibility and the responsibility of the senior team is to keep the campus safe, to make the best decisions we can to protect your safety and the well-being of the entire community. But I promise you, it will not be the same the entire semester. Let's just hope we can go in a good direction. Was feedback from students and the SGA used in determining the rules for the spring semester? Absolutely. That's why we went to the phases. That's why we started the Anselmian Anchors program. That's why we have put in some different ways of caring for students in isolation and quarantine. There's a lot of things that the student suggestions were very important to us. And students continue to serve on some of the subcommittees of the COVID team and have been really helpful in providing feedback to us as we've made decisions. So those are the ones that came in ahead of time. Let's see if we can take some others right here, and they're coming in. Let's see. As a senior with only one semester left, will we ever get to move in phases to have intervis and other family units? It seems unfair that dorms and underclassmen have more freedom compared to seniors. Again, it is my sincere hope we can get there soon. Again, if we can get to the least restrictive phases, the blue phase and the green phase, we can open up some of the pub and some other things. So trust me, I would love to announce that. We just not at this point right now. Is it possible that for COVID tests to be moved to the afternoons, especially as in the winter, it's usually much colder in the morning and tends to be more slippery in the morning due to black ice? We've have it in the morning because it's the only time we can find that doesn't conflict with classes. We want students to attend classes. That's not a surprise. And so that's why it's in the morning. I know it's early. I know it's cold. And I ask you to be careful when you're walking. But we want people to take the test, to show up for the test. It's really important. And that we will, but we don't want people to miss class. Would it be possible for students living in Holy Cross to use their full meal plans all day instead of just after 6 p.m.? With the cold weather and limited seating in Dave, takeout can get cold and the walk back. Thanks. That's a great question. Yeah, I don't know. I'm happy to make a note of it and bring that back and see what might be possible. If we're in orange phase, why are athletic coaches allowed on campus, especially when teams are not competing? We have seen multiple instances of coaches spreading the virus to athletes. How are they in close enough contact to students for this to happen? Well, first of all, that's a huge assumption to say that coaches are spreading the virus to athletes. As you know, we're an institution that prides itself on critical thinking. And so critical thinking means getting all the facts before you make a conclusion. So coaches are here because we are moving forward with spring sports. And we are following all the NCAA guidelines in doing that. In fact, our guidelines are even stricter than NCAA guidelines. We're doing a lot of testing. So we are following the guidelines. We are doing our best to give student athletes a positive experience, just like we're doing our best to give all students a positive experience. But there's a lot to balance here. If we were to go to a yellow phase, it states that apartments will be able to see a predetermined pairing. What does that mean? I think what it means is there would have to be some agreement as to which other apartment you would pair with, and that would be your socialization partner. But I would ask that you talk to your RA there to get clarification. But I think that's what that means. If we're calling the school a bubble, why then are we not allowed to see everyone within the bubble? Well, as you can see, as you've just heard, even though we are doing our best to create a bubble, We haven't done that yet. When you have 14 positives in 3 days, that's not a bubble. So we have to take that seriously. And again, if we can get that positivity rate under 1%, that would be a great step in the right direction, and maybe the thing that would lead us to kind of begin to loosen up the phases. How come nursing students are being tested so frequently when a good majority are vaccinated compared to the many others like athletes? We're doing that we're following state guidelines there. They say we still have to test even though people have been vaccinated. They want us to continue to test. So that's why. Why do we have the gates on the weekends when they close at 10 p.m.? Students end up going off campus late at night anyway, or get Ubers to leave campus. Will they be open later or have more security to prohibit students from walking down to NHIOP and getting Ubers off campus? I've said this before. It may feel like it to you, but we are not a prison. We're not going to, prevent. If someone really wants to go off campus, they're going to go off campus. If someone wants to break the community care covenant, they're going to break it. We're not going to be able to prevent that. Everyone here has a certain amount of freedom. And of course, we stress, and we stressed often, the importance of keeping the community safe by making really good decisions. But we're not going to create a situation where someone doesn't have the freedom to make their own decisions. That's part of being a responsible adult. It's part of taking care of others. And so again, we just encourage to keep one another accountable in this, and keep reminding each other of what's at stake if we have a pretty serious outbreak where you can't even leave your dorm room, much less leave the campus. So again, I just encourage people to keep each other accountable on that. Were these recent COVID cases a cluster or a separate infections? It was both, actually. So there was a cluster, but then there was a couple of individual cases, and those are concerning because we have to do some pretty significant contact tracing for those. The night is darkest just before dawn, and I promise you the dawn is coming. Harvey Dent. Yes, thank you, Harvey. We need a little hopeful news there. Will the college be administering vaccinations for students and faculty? We've been asked by the state of New Hampshire to be a point of distribution for colleges. For the state, they don't want us to be a public distribution. They want it to just be for our staff, faculty, and students. But we do not know when that will be. I know that we are not in the phase 1 of the New Hampshire plan. We are somewhere in phase 2 or 3. But when and if that time comes, and it could come sooner if the number of vaccinations available to the state of New Hampshire goes up dramatically, then they've told us they want us to be a point of distribution. So yes, we would administer them on campus. With COVID cases rising, why are masks not required at all times in the gym? I don't know. I think gyms, there are some protocols that I know that gyms off campus follow, where if you are working out and if you're within 6 feet of someone, especially if you're doing rigorous workout, sometimes a mask can be dangerous because you're not getting enough oxygen, but you can't be within 6 feet of someone. So of course, I would recommend for your own safety to wear a mask. But there are some guidelines that say as long as you are far enough apart, social distance, you wouldn't have to do that again. But because it's indoor space, I would recommend wearing a mask, especially if it would make you have a sense of taking precaution. How many cases would it take to enter phase red? Has phase red been considered recently? We haven't considered it at this point. I think what would get us there would be if we run out of quarantine and isolation spaces. I mean, capacity is a very important issue because if we don't have any more capacity, that means that we can't manage positivity rate. So that's the thing we're keeping our eye on. If we have positives and we can manage it, we will manage it. That's what we did in the first semester. But if we run out of space, that's a real issue for us. What are the chances we'll actually get intervis? Again, I hope it's good. Again, I think it's good, but it's not at this moment, at this point. Will those who are fully vaccinated continue getting tested regularly? I know that our health services are keeping track of not only those who've been vaccinated, but those who have tested positive for the virus in the last 90 days, and have adjusted their testing schedule in light of those numbers. Now, that doesn't mean there won't ever be tests for those folks, but if it frees up tests for others, that's what we're trying to do, and they're tracking that pretty closely. Can we move the trash cans in Davison Hall near the exit? I'll bring that back. That's a great point. How often do you evaluate changing phases? The COVID analytics team meets 2 to 3 times a week. They met yesterday, they're meeting tomorrow. So they are staying on top of this and monitoring this very closely. Why can't everyone get tested every week and we can open more things up? Well, if you talk to Mara Marshall, our Director of Health Services, she will tell you that testing is not the antidote here. We can do all kinds of testing, but if we continue to have positivity rates, that's the issue. And so we are following, again, CDC guidelines, New Hampshire Health and Human Services in our surveillance testing. We test everyone who's had close contact. We test them multiple times. So I think our testing protocols are in good shape. And just because we test more doesn't mean that we would have, be able to create the bubble sooner. But it's really the practice of wearing masks, washing your hands, keeping social distances. It's all of those things that we have to follow as closely as we can. How many beds do you have for quarantine? Well, it's a great question. We have been creative, and so that number changes because if we have some available beds, we can move some folks around in some residence halls to get more available beds. We are constantly looking at that and being as creative as we can as possible. So, there's not a set number. If we have to really, really find more beds, we will do our best to find them, even if it means we have to move some folks around. We don't want to do that. It inconveniences folks. It's disruptive, but we will continue to be as creative as we can be to keep everyone on campus. Will fans or parents of athletes be allowed once sports resume? That's a conversation that's being debated right now with our league, our Northeast 10. I would say it's probably, at this moment, there's a lot of concern about that. But again, as things open up a bit, as the vaccine goes forward, and also the fact that these sports are all outdoor sports, we'll see. But in any event, in the best possible scenario, it will be very limited. Has there been conversation with us getting sent home anytime soon? No, and I don't want to be spread a lot of fear about that. We're going to work as hard as we can to keep everyone on campus, even if we have to go to phase red. As hard as that would be and as difficult as that would be, our hope would be to be able to keep folks on campus. Can you explain why Dr. O'Reilly told nursing majors that vaccinated students don't have to quarantine if they're considered a close contact? Yeah, that's an open question. And again, there seems to be, we're trying to get clearer guidelines from the state and CDC on that. Again, the vaccine, if someone is fully vaccinated with both shots 2 weeks after the second shot, there seems to be some evidence that they have some amount of protection. That's the whole point of the vaccine. But it's one that we are looking at. We're trying to get more information on at this point. Can the mail center be open for a few hours on Saturday? Okay, that's one I will take back. I'm not sure how we do that, but I'll take it back. It's a good suggestion. Will the senior class have their senior formal? It's a little early for that right now. We're really focused on commencement and then moving, and then we know that there are other things that we need to look at. So we have not had a conversation about that yet. Shout out Vice President Kevin Chisholm. Shout out to Kevin. He's doing a great job. I love working with Kevin and Rit, and I think the SGA is doing a fabulous job. They're great partners with us. If we go into phase red, will we be able to go home? We haven't had that conversation. We'll see what options are available if we get there, and let's all hope and pray that we don't get there. Why is Dave being so intense with the reservations? If you don't have your ID or have an email and you can't go to eat and have to redo the whole thing. I know we've gotten some students who have indicated that. We're working with the system at this point. Again, the whole point is we don't want a big line outside a day. We're trying to mitigate that. That's why the reservation system is in place to begin with. But I know it's clunky. So we've been in touch with our dining director, and she's working with her team. So we're trying to make some change there. But if it's not working, though, keep being a squeaky wheel and letting us know about that. Can there be a 7 a.m. gym time? I don't know. That part of that has to do with staffing. But again, I'll put it on the list and we'll see. If students are to remain on campus, could someone please remove the huge chunks of ice all around Dominic? There's ice over everywhere and it's very slippery. I feel like this not taken care of. A person may be injured when walking to and from their classes. Okay, thank you. Good feedback. I'll put that on the list as well. Yeah, I know I'm very careful around ice. I don't want to get make any big falls, but we'll put it on the list to bring back. All right, so that's it for the questions for tonight. Some great questions. Man, you keep me on my toes. And just know that we are really working as hard as we can to give students a good experience at St. A's. We think it's an incredible place. We know why you came here, and I hope we can get back as soon as we can to some semblance of normal, to really make the place it's so special, and we want that. So let me just say I appreciate your questions, and I hope we've been able to address some of your concerns. I promise we hear you, but please hang in there. Please be patient. We're going to get there together. So that brings it to a close tonight. Hope you have a great evening. Just be well, stay safe. And as always, I hope to see you around campus, socially distanced, of course. Maybe you'll see me when I go down and get my coffee from Gallo, but I'm trying to get around and visit with folks. And don't forget, if you want to get to Mass tonight, 9 o'clock, Abbey Church. Have a good night.